Welcome back in, everybody, to Sports and Money. It is a privilege to have all of you back with us as always. We're doing basically a Kansas City Chiefs business meeting tonight. We are talking a lot of finances, a lot of strategy. I will keep it quick. We are not going to make this a long video and drag it out all over the place. I will be quick and to the point. Thank you for being on board with us. Let's get to it. All right, first number up. I got the whiteboard back tonight, by the way, in case you hadn't noticed. The cap space. So $9.6 million is at the moment, at the making of this video, and this is a fluid number, changes almost daily right now during the off season. $9.6 million is the amount of cap space that the Chiefs have right now, and that's a good number. It doesn't feel like it because you're like, darn it, we are going to have to really do some maneuvering to sign our own free agents, much less go out and pick up another free agent. That does not feel like a lot, but all things considered, the enormous Mahomes contract that of course you had to pay starting a couple of seasons ago, combined with the fact that you have a good roster surrounding Patrick Mahomes, combined with the fact that you've won 2 Super Bowls in the past 2 seasons, all of that put together, this $9.6 million cap space that we're looking at right now is an excellent number. It really is. The Chiefs have put themselves in an excellent position here, and they usually do. They really usually do a very good job of this. It's especially a good number when you look around and see other teams like the Bills, the Dolphins, the Saints, the Eagles to an extent. I could name others who really are in all kinds of cap problems, cap issues, cap something, whether it's free agents or just they're way over the cap and they're having to make hard decisions, and they don't have Super Bowls to show for it. So 9.6, even though that feels tight, it is tight. You don't have a lot of wiggle room there. That's an excellent number. So I like that. The amount of dead cap space, I won't spend long on that, but that's right now they're basically paying $6.8 million cap-wise, not cash-wise, but cap-wise, to players who either aren't on the team anymore or who are still on the team, but this number pays for something they played a year or 2 ago. So that dead cap number, 6.8, that is actually a very good number as well. There are lots of teams all over the league who are paying $12, $15, $20 million worth of cap space. Again, that's not fluid current cash, but cap space to players who aren't even on the team anymore. In some cases, haven't been on the team for a year or 2. So you talk about that amount of dead cap space, not maybe 2 years, but 1 year past removed. That amount of cap space being devoted to players who aren't on the team anymore when you're looking at $15, $20 million is borderline ridiculous, but let's not get into that tonight. $6.8 million of cap space. That really means that the Chiefs, by and large, are running efficiently and smoothly. They're not making a lot of dumb mistakes with their cap. And so that's really what that means. That's a very, very good indicator. So health-wise, how are we doing on the draft? Well, you've got number 32, 64, of course, 95. You've got 1 4th-round pick and 2 5th-round picks. I'm not telling you anything you don't know there, but what I will suggest here is I hope Kansas City doesn't sit there at number 32. Then the players that you can get at 32 are fine, but really I think they can do better by trading back, because somebody on draft night is going to want to trade up into that 32 spot and get somebody who's sliding down. And so you can kind of get more bang for your buck by trading back. Or what I really hope they'll do from 32 is actually trade up. I think there are players in this draft, and in most drafts, but in this draft, that I think would be great for Kansas City at a number of spots. It's not going to be cheap to trade up. You're not going to be able to trade up from 32 to 29 and probably get the magic player, but I think players up there in the top 15 somewhere, and again, that's not cheap, and it's not necessarily Kansas City's DNA to be that aggressive and trade that far up, but I've mentioned it in previous videos. I would really love to see Kansas City trade up here and get a player that they absolutely love, who is absolutely a difference maker, who has tremendous athleticism, first-round caliber athleticism. I think that's a better fit for your team moving forward, all things considered. And by the way, they've traded up before, and it has often worked out very well for them. So it's not something that they haven't done, and it's something I'm recommending and hoping that they do with the 32nd pick overall. What about cap savings if we want some wiggle room? If we don't want to restructure, where are we going to find some cap savings at? Well, here's 2 spots. Number 1, edge. Charles Omenihu You can save $7 million. That's after a small dead cap hit. You can save $7 million by releasing or trading him. I don't think you'll find a trade market, so it would be a release probably. You can save $7 million. And listen, I know he had quite a few sacks last year. I think it was 7, which I think is the most he's ever had. And he played a pretty good solid rotation part there. I think it was 500 plus snaps he played last year. But if you're looking for cap savings, number one, trade release, Charles Omenihu, that's $7 million. The other guy is safety Justin Reid. You can save almost just a hair under $11 million after a small dead cap hit. You still save $11 million. If you're looking for wiggle room, it's these two guys right here. Omenihu the edge at $7 million and Reid the safety at $11 million. I will come back to them here in just a minute. What about your free agents? Well, you guys already know who your free agents are, but let me tell you the top 3 that I would be looking at. Number 1 is L'Jarius Sneed. This would be my personal top target. And a lot of you are going to disagree, and that is totally fine. Okay? There are different ways to get this done. And Kansas City can win by doing this different ways, and that's fine. They often have. Me personally, L'Jarius Sneed is going to be 27 years old when the season starts. That's still pretty young. I don't know that he's going to get any better, but he's already really good. He's an impact player. He's not just a guy doing the dirty work, and he's not just a guy who saddles up for a lot of defensive snaps. He is actually a difference maker. You could see it in the Ravens game. You could see it in both Super Bowls. You can see it during the regular season. You can see it against the run game. You can see it when he's in pass coverage. He can do slot. He can do cover wide receivers out there on the big side. If he needed to, he could drop into the safety patterns. He did that in college for many games. He's flexible. He's tough. He's a good tackler. There's really nothing he can't do. And I know that was a good Chiefs secondary. And I realized that when you got McDuffie back there, who is just unbelievably good, and you got some other young players back there, but I don't think that you have anybody like L'Jarius Sneed. And I don't mean that he's better than McDuffie. I actually think McDuffie is the better player. But what I mean is he's an impact player who does a lot of different things. And he's 27. And I don't think he's actually going to cost a lot. You know, he wants to get paid, and he should want to get paid. And I'm often averse to large cap hits. But I don't think he's going to cost all that much, relatively speaking. I'm thinking somewhere 15, 16, 17, $18 million a season. Somewhere in that range. I mean, listen, we see defensive ends and defensive tackles making a lot more money than that. And of course, the quarterback market is just out the wazoo. So for him to show up and play for the next 3 or 4 seasons, starting at the age of 27, you get him in his prime. He's come up through the system. He knows everybody. He doesn't have to learn anything. You know who he is. You know what you're getting out of him. And I just really think that's a player that I want to keep. And listen, I have often said on here, I'm about to say on here, no player is irreplaceable except Patrick Mahomes. No player is inexpendable. I mean, all players are expendable. You can move on without them. You can play without them, and the Chiefs have. But Sneed here, all things considered, is a guy who at somewhere in that $15 to $18 million a season, I think he really is truly an impact player, and he does so many different things. And he's a guy that you've brought up through the system, and he's young. So even if I have to give him a 4-year deal, which basically means the first 2 years are guaranteed, and then I'm on the hook for part of the 3rd year, even if it goes sideways, which is extremely unlikely, we've seen him consistently grow from year to year to year. It's not as if his first 3 years were a struggle and he had a breakout 4th year. We have seen him grow and progress. So I really like the idea of bringing him back. And of course, they franchise tagged him already. And that 19 and change $1 million cap hit on the tag side, which he hasn't signed yet, is already included in your cap space. So it's not 19 out of that. You've still got the 9.6 after they already tagged Sneed. So I'm all in on bringing Sneed back. I don't know what the team is thinking. They may be ready to move on, and if so, that's fine. I'm in on bringing Sneed back. Chris Jones, let me utter a little bit of blasphemy here. I'm ready, I think, to move on from Chris Jones. It's going to happen at some point. It happens with everybody. Chris Jones is going to be 30 years old when the season starts. And Kansas City typically does not like to give out large deals to guys who are in that 29 and 30-year-old bracket. that we've seen them let go of several good players of the past 3 or 4 seasons, and they've actually done a good job of making the tough decisions and letting go of good players. And I love Chris Jones. No one has to tell me how great he is, how dominant he is, how much attention he demands on double teams, how great of a heart he's got, how willing he was to risk a large contract by coming back and playing for Kansas City this year without that large contract extension. Nobody's got to tell me anything about Chris Jones because I absolutely love him. But all things considered, I think now might be the time to move on. And I don't know that Kansas City is going to do that. This may be the one player that they're like, nah, we're going to keep him. And the defense is going to change drastically without him. There's no way that you're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback the way you have these past 5 or 6 years without Chris Jones. It's not going to happen. It will be a different team and a different defense, and you'll have to win a different way, just like you've found ways to win different ways over the past few years. But I think now is the time to move on from Chris Jones. He's going to be expensive, even if he gives a discount, which I think he's willing to do. I think he is more than happy to stay in Kansas City and give a big discount, but even then, he's still probably going to be pretty expensive. I figure, I don't know, I'm shooting in the dark here. Even if he gives you a discount, he's probably still way over $20 million a season, and he's 30 years old. So for those 2 reasons alone, even though I love Chris Jones, and he has given everything to the franchise, and he has been borderline unstoppable almost his entire time here, certainly the past 3 or 4 seasons, for me, now is the time to move on from Chris Jones. I may be in the minority there, and Kansas City themselves may not even agree with me, but that's where I'm at. The third guy is Drue Tranquill, the linebacker. I don't think anybody on the Chiefs got less attention and did a better job combined than Drue Tranquill. His work at linebacker this year, largely, probably not in Kansas City, but outside of Kansas City, largely went unnoticed. His work was tremendous this year. They've already, according to reports, signed a 3-year, $19 million deal. That is not reflected in this number here, so you will have to take out something. We're still waiting to see how the contract lays out, whether that's $5 million the first year or $8 million, however they broke it down. Whatever that first year number is will affect that cap space number. But Drue Tranquill, I actually like the fact that they brought him back. I think he's 27 years old right now, so he should still be good for a couple more seasons. And I think Willie Gay is probably gone. So bringing Drue Tranquill back, listen, I just really thought he did a tremendous job, and I like the fact that they brought him back. And it's not a huge number. This is a good, solid starting linebacker, which have gotten to be a little infrequent in the NFL. In case you haven't looked around the other linebacking cores around the NFL, it is hard to find good linebackers at the NFL level. Drue Tranquill is one. He fits what they do, and he's not expensive, and he's still pretty young. So that's actually a good thing. I like that right there. They have more free agents. Every team does. Every team's got anywhere from 22 to 32 free agents a year, something like that. The Chiefs have more, but the rest are all fairly lower impact on the money side. So whether it's Donovan Smith at left tackle or Willie Gay at linebacker, or whether it's one of the running backs, there are plenty of other free agents for them to make decisions on. I didn't include them tonight because I just don't think this demands it, but those are the 3. And that's what I would be doing. You will have a different way. Brett Veach, of course, will have a different way. Whatever they want to do, when they need the cap space to do it, you just show up at Mahomes Bank and Trust LLC and you restructure him, because he's operating on a lot of goodwill with a very large cap number, and that is basically your flex. But before I did that, he's already got a large cap number next year. And I know that there's an extension somewhere in the offing that will affect these numbers. But before I restructured Mahomes, I'm going to let go of one or probably both of these guys. These are good players. Reed has done a good job the past couple of seasons. I think it's 2 seasons he's been here now. And I don't think Kansas City regrets signing him. I think that's been a good signing. Not super expensive, and I think he's done a solid job there at safety. And Charles Omenihu at edge, I mentioned, he had the sacks this year, and he's a good rotation guy. But I honestly feel like if I've got to make tough choices and tough decisions, and I have no problem doing that, these 2 guys are going to get released. So I have money for one or both of these guys. And that's just the way it is. These are good, decent players, solid starter, solid rotation guy, but this is an impact player. And I'm not letting Snead walk out the door just so I can keep him in a Hugh and Reed. There's just no way that that's going to happen. So if it were me, I'll let both of these guys walk. I bring Snead in, and Chris Jones is the one that maybe I can't afford, but I'm also concerned about age, and Kansas City often is as well. All right, I think that's all I'm going to cover for the night. Let me hit a couple of news and notes, and then we'll get out of here. I've got a YouTube show coming up on this same channel. You won't miss it. I've got 4 guests coming on: Shane, Corey, Austin, Robertson. It's starting Tuesday, March 12th. I'm very excited about it. These guys are from all up and down the East Coast, from different backgrounds and different groups. It's going to be hopefully a very exciting, fast-paced 30-minute show that we've got coming up. It will be NFL focused, but we'll cover a lot of other rando things as well in sports and out of it. So we're going to keep it fast moving, and we will try to make it different. So check that out coming up. Odds on Favorites, podcast I do with Robertson Buyer. Go over to Apple or Spotify, check that out. Tricky Takes, we were guests, me and Robertson, on the Tricky Takes podcast, where we talked about a lot of baseball this past week. Go over and check that out. And then the Simon Short podcast, I am going to be a semi-regular guest. I podcasted with Simon for a couple of years now, but I'm going to start being a semi-regular guest over there, where we will talk a lot of football and especially a lot of draft coming up. So please check that out as well. This is a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm involved in. That's it. Thank you very much. Have a great one. We'll see you next week. Bye.